So there's been a lot of talk over the last few months about a Grand Prix, a Formula 1 race in Africa for the first time in over 30 years. Now, two leading candidates have emerged from this. South Africa, where the Kyalami circuit hosted the South African Grand Prix for a number of years in the 1990s and before, and also Rwanda, hoping to take its place on the Formula 1 calendar for the first time ever. Now, of course, these are two very contrasting circuits that will be proposed, two very contrasting locations, but both are in Africa and both are now apparently going head to head for that coveted spot on the F1 calendar. Now, I've already given my thoughts about Rwanda, I've already given my thoughts about South Africa as well, and I've heard some very interesting stuff from both South Africans and Rwandans in the comments on F1 Chronicle over the last few months about both of these races. So I wanted to go into this article first on the F1 Chronicle, go what people have saying, what people have kind of been saying in the comments section as well, and just kind of give my general thoughts now on this. So let's have a look at what's been said, because this story's kind of been a bit quiet recently, but I've seen it emerge again recently. So let's see what's happening here with an African Grand Prix of some description. Africa seems to be inching towards a place on the F1 calendar. It is the only continent on Earth not represented within the World Championship, with two clear contenders for a deal with Liberty Media. They are the circuit at Kyalami, having last hosted the South African Grand Prix in 1993, and Rwanda. Rwanda's separate project appears to be strongly backed by F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali, as well as the FIA, who are organising the end-of-season prize gala in the East Central African nation. Potentially Rwanda is on the cards, which is amazing, Lewis Hamilton said ahead of the Brazilian Grand Prix. I just hope it comes before I'm gone. That's my biggest dream, to make sure I get to the race before I retire. However, organisers of a potential F1 return to Kyalami revealed on Thursday that South African Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie met with Domenicali just last month. The minister even said he had an extremely good meeting with FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Kyalami officials declared on Thursday that the circuit is working hard to restore full F1 ready Grade 1 status accreditation at the venue located near Johannesburg. Circuit officials said in a media statement, whilst negotiations with various players, including Liberty Media, continue tirelessly behind the scenes, South Africans can rest assured that there will be a suitable home for the return of F1. Separately, a Kyalami spokesman told IOL that the track could be ready for Formula 1 in 2027 or possibly even a late 2026 entry. Yes, because they're in the Southern Hemisphere, so if they obviously go in what is our winter, that will be their summer. That race has been held in January. It's been held on New Year's Day, I believe, in the past. I think that was in the days of the East London circuit rather than Kyalami. We're going way back to the 1960s there. Something I want to point out though, and I'm just going to go onto Google Maps for this. So basically, when I've been suggesting that, so I did a video a little bit ago on the F1Chronicle.com, basically going over the 5 circuits that I would like to see come back onto the F1 calendar. Well, one of the ones that I suggested was Kyalami. Now, partly because we don't have a race in Africa on the calendar, but partly because it's a good track. I like it. It's a good circuit these days for sure. But there are some problems. Now, currently it's a Grade 2 track. However, to make it a Grade 1 circuit, they're going to need to upgrade some of the runoff areas and possibly reprofile some of the corners, as well as building new grandstands. Now, around a lot of the track, there is actually quite a bit of space to play with here. There's just forests over there, which I know is not ideal. You don't want to be chopping down trees, but there is space there to be used, basically. But have a look at this, and this is what someone pointed out a while ago. You've got buildings right on the edge of the track. I mean, there's a little space over here. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse. I think you can on this screen capture, but up here near the top side here. But more importantly, I think, is that there is no space really at all to go and extend here. There's literally just a road there, and I think that's one of the main kind of braking zones, like round this area here. I think the cars go like this sort of direction, so they would need to have an extended runoff there. Currently, right now, the runoff is not big enough to be safe for Grade 1 status. So what I'm gathering from people who are closer on the ground to me, are more well informed about South African Formula 1 than me, is that unfortunately, in order to make Kyalami Grade 1, they're gonna have to start demolishing buildings to do it. And I don't think they're gonna do doing that. That would be extremely expensive, and if not just outright impossible. So there is that. there is that. I've also heard things about the medical facilities not being the best in terms of distance to the nearest hospital. I mean, it's right on the edge of Joburg, isn't it? So it's not exactly, yeah, it's on the outskirts of Johannesburg, basically. So it's not exactly in the middle of nowhere, but it's still a long way to get down to a hospital if the nearest one is in the centre of Johannesburg. In fact, they're actually probably closer to Pretoria, to be fair. But anyway, enough South African geography. I would love to see South Africa come back onto the calendar. I've said it a number of times, but the more I suggest this and the more that I look into it, the more I think it's unlikely, especially with the amount of money that they would have to spend. I mean, I've been through various jobs over the years. I've been loosely in contact with people from South Africa, and they have never had anything nice to say about the economic situation in the country. It's always been there's problems. There's always been major problems. And it doesn't seem to really be getting any better. Now, I'm not saying that makes it impossible, but I am just saying that's a lot of money that they'd have to spend. And are they going to spend it on something like that? Possibly. It's not out of the question. But I think from a public relations point of view, I think a lot of South Africans would not want several hundreds of millions of rand being spent on what is effectively a vanity project. Let's be real here, guys. That's what that is, right? It is. That is what Grand Prix are nowadays. They are, look at us, we can afford to host Formula One. We're so rich. That's basically what it is. So there is that. Now, Rwanda. Now, obviously, I was very critical of Formula One being very enthusiastic about getting Rwanda on the calendar. And I'm not going to comment in detail about the issues about Rwanda when it comes to rights of LGBT people, when it comes to rights of certain people in the country, really. It is not ideal. It's probably not the worst on the F1 calendar. I think there's definitely worse on the calendar. I'll let you figure out which ones those are, but it would be up there. It would definitely be up there. So that's not great from a starting point of view, but purely taking it from the racing point of view, there's no F1 tracks in Rwanda. There's anything close to an F1 track. They'd have to build something completely new. And again, this isn't impossible. Rwanda is a growing nation in terms of its economic influence. They are holding the FIA prize gala, like the article said. So clearly Paul Kagame is cozying up to F1 and trying to get his kind of reputation in a bit more of a positive light, just like Vladimir Putin did with Russia, just like Saudi Arabia doing, and Qatar, and I can keep going on about this. They're not the only ones, but that doesn't make it right either. 2 wrongs do not make a right. The 3 rights might make a left if you go 90 degrees. Anyway, so yeah, it would have to be a massive project in terms of trying to build something completely new. Honestly, I think it's more likely that there will be a Rwandan Grand Prix on the calendar than a South African Grand Prix, and it pains me to say it, but that's just the reality of it. Again, South Africans, comment below, let me know if I'm wrong about this, but I've seen quite a few South Africans already comment on videos in the past basically saying it's not going to happen. They're not going to be able to get Kyalami up to a grade 1 status because of the building problems that I just mentioned. They're going to have to increase the profile of the circuit to make it safer for F1, and it's not practically possible right now. So maybe South Africa could create a new track, but then that would even be even more expensive than what an upgrade project for Kyalami would be, and that would be in the hundreds of millions of US dollars without a doubt. There's no doubt that'd be a very expensive project. So I think Rwanda could happen. F1 wants it to happen. And how terrible would it be if it ends up replacing somewhere like the Belgian Grand Prix, which is under threat, like the Dutch Grand Prix that's under threat? It'd be really, really tragic. But it could become a reality. But there we go, guys. I could rant on about this for a long time. But yeah, African Grand Prix. When is it going to happen? Where should it happen? Where do you think it will happen? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, keep it subscribed to the F1Chronicle.com to see much more Formula One content just like this.